historians, and welcome to the next presentation in our National 5 History Inquiry Skills. Now again, just a reminder of the different types of questions that you can be asked. Also, we have the knowledge and understanding questions, a describe which is worth 4 marks, and explain which is worth 6 marks, and a mini essay which is worth 9 marks. You also have the source handling questions, a source comparison which is worth 4 marks, an evaluate usefulness which is worth 5 marks, and a how through which is worth 6 marks. Now our focus today is going to be on the question which is underlined and in bold, which is our mini essay question which is worth 9 marks, and our Disney mascot for this question is Aladdin. Now, what Aladdin's aiming for you to do by the end of this lesson in terms of the mini essay question is firstly to know how to answer a mini essay question. Secondly, to have went over an example as a class. And then thirdly, to have glued the template into our jotters. Now again, as with previous presentations, if you do not have a hard copy of this, then you have the option to write this in your jotter. Okay, now the key information that you need to know about a mini essay question. There are 3 types of mini essay questions that you can be asked. They can be worded in 3 different ways. They can have the question stem to what extent, where you need to choose what the most important factor is in that question. They can have the questions stem how important, which again you need to choose the most important factor. Or they can have the question stem how successful, and again you need to make a judgment if you feel based on the statement if it is a success or not. Now, where do you get the 9 marks for the mini essay question? Now you get 1 mark for having an introduction. Now that introduction needs to have a bit of background or factors mentioned. You get 5 marks for knowledge points which you can mention throughout your answer. You get 1 mark for having more than one valid factor, which is known as a balance mark. You get 1 mark for having a conclusion, so coming to a clear conclusion, and you get 1 mark for giving evidence for that conclusion. So in total, 9 marks. Now, how do we answer this question? We answer this question using the mnemonic I face, and you'll see the smiley face there. Now, what does I face stand for? Well, to start with, the I stands for introduction, so that's an introduction to your mini essay. So describe a background fact or state the factors to be discussed. The F stands for factor, so that's where you discuss the factor named in the question, explaining why it is important. Now for this factor you'd look to give 2 or 3 facts. The A stands for alternatives, so you discuss alternative factors by saying however, and then give another point of view or factor, and again you're aiming to have 2 or 3 facts for each of these. And then the C stands for conclusion, so you clearly answer the question, what was the main factor or was it successful? And then the E stands for evidence, so you give 1 piece of evidence to support your conclusion, so that gets you your final mark there. So the mnemonic I face is what we are aiming to use. Now here's an example just out of context. So the example question is, to what extent is cheese the best combination with chips? 9 marks. So our introduction here. There are many combinations that people have with chips. Cheese is one combination, however curry sauce and beans are also popular combinations. So we mentioned there in our introduction 2 other factors of curry sauce and beans. Also our factor in the question is cheese. So that would be 1 mark for introduction there. We then start off by saying cheese is arguably the best combination with chips because when the cheese is placed on the chips it usually melts and creates a lovely taste which people like. So there's 1 mark for KU. In addition, there's many different types of cheese that you can have with chips, including cheddar, mozzarella and even a spicy cheese, so people can choose their favourite cheese to have with the chips. There's another mark for KU. So that's just done the I and the F. Now what we're aiming to do is the A, so our alternative factors. So we start off by saying, others would argue curry sauce is the best combination with chips because it creates a mild spicy taste which people enjoy. So that's 1 mark for KU, and because we've got another valid factor which gains a KU mark, we also get a mark for balance here because we have another factor. Also, certain types of curry sauce can be spicier, so people can choose to add a different curry sauce depending on how they like their food. So there's another mark for KU. Others would argue beans is the best combination with chips because the beans usually have a tomato taste and people like this to add flavour to their chips and make sure they're not too dry. So there's another mark for KU. So far, based on this answer, we have 7 out of 9. So the last part here is we need to come to a conclusion and give a reason for our conclusion. So we finish by saying, in conclusion, cheese is the best combination with chips. So that's 1 mark for the conclusion there. And you'll see this conclusion has went with the factor in the question, said that cheese is the best combination. You do not need to stick with the factor in the question. You can argue that you think any factor is the best combination. You just need to give a reason for it. So you'll see here, to get a last mark, This is because it melts over the chips and provides a great taste, but also because there are so many different types of cheese, it makes cheese the most diverse combination. So that's 1 mark for evidence. So that's our last part of our I face there. Now here's another example from the British topic, which is the Atlantic slave trade. So this example says, to what extent was Alludo Equiano the main reason for the success of the abolitionist campaign? 9 marks. So again, we start off with our introduction. There were many reasons for the success of the abolitionist campaign. Alludo Equiano was one reason. However, William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson were also important. So we mentioned 2 other factors there. We mentioned William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson, so we get our 1 mark introduction. Some historians think that Alludo Equiano was the main reason for the success of the abolitionist campaign because his first-hand account of his experiences as a slave persuaded many people about the evils of slavery. So there's 1 mark KU. In addition, his was the only book to be written by an African telling about his experiences as a slave, and it persuaded many people to support the abolition of the slave trade. So there's another mark for KU. So that's just on the I and the F. So we've done the introduction and the factor in the question. Now what we're aiming to do is the alternative factor. Other historians think that William Wilberforce was also a main reason for the success of the abolitionist campaign because he used evidence gathered by abolitionists to try and persuade Parliament to abolish the African slave trade. So there's 1 mark for KU and also a mark for balance because we've gained a KU mark for that second factor, so we get a mark for balance here. Also, Wilberforce made speeches which brought great publicity to the cause of the abolitionists of the slave trade. So there is another mark, KU. Other historians think that Thomas Clarkson was also a main reason for the success of the abolition campaign because he displayed equipment used on the slave ships such as iron handcuffs and branding irons to demonstrate the barbarity of the slave trade. So there's another mark for KU. So far we've done the I introduction, we've done the F, which is the factor in the question, and we've done the A for alternative factors. We've mentioned William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson here. So the last part here we need to come to a conclusion, our C, and give evidence for our conclusion, our E. So in conclusion, William Wilberforce was the main reason for the success of the abolitionist campaign. Now you'll see here, this has not went with the factor in the question. So the factor in the question here was Alludo Equiano. So this answer has went with William Wilberforce. Now we need to give a reason for our conclusion. This is because despite having many bills rejected by Parliament, he never gave up the fight to end the slave trade, and by helping to lead the abolitionist campaign, he inspired others to push for the trade to eventually be ended. So there's a mark for evidence there in our conclusion. So the template to go into our jotters, what you're aiming to have is obviously your I, your introduction, so there are many reasons for, then just use the one of the question. Name the factor in the question, so say this was important, but, or however, another factor and another factor were also important. Then the next part, F, factor in the question, so some historians think whatever the factor in the question is was the most important in ending the slave trade, for example, because, and you'd aim to get a couple of marks there. Then alternative factors, other historians think that, then name your other factor was more important in, because, and give some detail there. And obviously we have our C there for the conclusion. So in conclusion, whatever you're choosing was the most important factor for, and then give evidence. So I think this because, or this is because. That is your last part there. So back to our aims for this presentation with Aladdin, just to make sure that you have achieved the following. So firstly, know how to answer a mini essay question. If you're still not sure, you can go back through the presentation just to go over it again. We went over an example as a class. We went over 2 examples as a class, one with cheese and chips and obviously one with the Atlantic slave trade, and glued or copied in a template into our jotters.